Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to Crypto Talk with Brianna and Scott. I am the Scott. This is Brianna. Brianna, how you doing today?
I'm great, Scott. I'm glad to be back. I missed last week, and I was missing you on the show, so I'm happy to be here. Really excited about today's show. How are you?
Doing good. I am doing good. I'm in the Halloween theme, as you can see. Everybody, I think we'll be able to get 2 shows in here before Halloween. So, figured we had to gussy it up, have a little fun. Today's going to be fun. We've got a special guest coming on today that we're really excited about, and we're going to get into some good stuff today because our guest Tigran is a lawyer, and he knows a lot about the crypto space and about the different sides of the law. And so we're going to get some really interesting views today. And it's been a good week in crypto, and I think. I think every week is a good week in crypto, even though the market's down. I actually have a chart that, if we have time today, I'll show people that we could be in this for another year or more of this sideways bear market. But like I always say, crypto is here to stay, and so we're in build mode for one, right? If you're a builder or creator, and then two, as an investor, there's this wonderful little thing called DeFi out here that we can make really good interest and yield no matter what the market's doing. And I'm a happy camper. I'm earning 20 to 50% on my coins. So I'm a happy camper. And so I'm just glad to be here and glad to be talking about crypto. So Brianna, if you don't have anything other to say, why don't you introduce our guest, and we'll bring him on here. We'll get going.
Sounds great. Yeah, let's bring on our guest. Our guest today is Tigran Martinian, and Tigran is the founder of Martinian and Associates, a professional law corporation based out of Los Angeles, California. He's a crypto enthusiast and has represented individuals in cases involving cryptocurrency scams from both angles. So those who have been scammed and those who have been the initiators of the scams. So we will get to learn a little bit about that, what type of cases he's dealt with involving cryptocurrency and his profession as a trial attorney. Also some tips as to what to look out for as a crypto investor when it comes to scams. Tigran also practices martial arts and is a master certified meditation instructor. Interested in hearing more about that. Welcome, Tigran. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Scott and Brianna, and thanks for the introduction. Um, I'm happy to be here to have an interesting talk and contribute to what you guys do and share my thoughts and um, some of my past experiences to be able to be useful and helpful to some of your viewers. So thank you.
Awesome.
Nice to see you both.
Yeah, it's great. It's great to have you on here. And I usually always love to ask this question of all of our guests because a lot of us have met in a DeFi program, training program by London Real, and but yeah, I'd like to know like what was your introduction to crypto? How long have you been into the crypto space, and what kind of got you excited about it?
Well, Brian got me excited about it, and also making money got me excited about it.
Yeah,
Obviously, I've heard about Bitcoin, Ethereum, a number of other things that cryptocurrencies in the past. Never had a real desire to jump into it until a few years ago. I made some money on Dutch coin and on Shiba Inu, and while I was counting the money that I made through these, through these coins, I saw Brian's ad, and I said, let me jump in and see what it is about. And Brian kind of excited me about it, and I signed up for one thing, and then another, and I'm in his investment club, which is a good thing. And um, it's been a nice year learning. This is something brand new that is not really taught in schools or universities. So
right.
um, it's a big subject to learn, and I'm learning that.
Okay, Brianna, do you have any questions that you want to ask before we dive in?
Well, I'm kind of curious, as in your profession as an attorney, over these last couple of years, has there been a huge number in cases involving cryptocurrency? Does it seem like it's getting more and more, or has that kind of been going on for a while?
So that's an interesting question. Look, um, anytime we deal with law, we have to look at whether or not there are actually laws that are designed to control a situation, a matter, or whatnot. So, you know, there's not much law that is specifically designed for purposes of crypto, but there are laws that are governing actions of crypto traders. So cases are piling up slowly but surely in the in criminal courts against various scammers, scam artists, and, and people that do wrong to other people in the crypto space. So, but also cases are piling up in civil courts against companies that actually allow tradings to be performed on their platforms. Um, and civil cases are predominantly against these platforms for negligent negligent security towards its members. And in criminal cases, you would see cases against scam artists that are scamming other people to give them access to their wallets where they would go get the money and take off. So there's a lot of traction out there. And the problem that people are having is, they definitely see a case, they definitely see uh, a wrong done by someone, but they don't have a law that they can refer to on how to deal with it. And the things that we turn into is the policies that platforms themselves create to deal with situations where lawsuits are necessary. We call them arbitration agreement provisions.
Okay, yeah, one of the things I talk about a lot here, and I'd just like to get your perspective on this, is I'm not a coder, but I'm heavily involved in all aspects of crypto, and even some of the technical sides of it. But one of the things that I'm just still amazed at is how much hacking goes on in the code, and I still believe, or what I hear, and again, also would be interested in your opinion, is that a lot of the scams and the way people lose their money in crypto is social engineering. Where they are fooled. We are fooled into giving our passwords or giving our access, and then they can take advantage of that. Now that happens in traditional finance too, right? But it happens in crypto a lot too. So that's one side. The second area that we see it is actual hackers going in and taking advantage of the code, exploiting code, and going in the back door and then stealing the crypto. And from my perspective, I'm just like, wow, I can't believe we can't get a hold of that. I say we as the proverbial, crypto people that are involved in crypto. If you're building, these protocols, it is open source. Pretty much anybody can, grab this code, create a project, put it out there without, audits or whatever, and through nice marketing tactics, have people invest in it. There's that, and that's kind of the scammy part that I think the ICO craze, was out there at this time. But we're talking about some of these legitimate protocols that actually are getting hacked, and a lot of the bridges are getting hacked. What do you see, or what are your comments about that? And about, let's first just take the protocols getting hacked, and it's like, wow, I'm just surprised that so much of that goes on. What are your thoughts about that?
I mean, look, hacking is something that takes place daily on all aspects of lives: emails, bank accounts, trading accounts, and so is crypto. And I think, the responsibility bears with the platform to create, safe enough of an environment so that no hacker can get in. And if they're not successful, they should be held responsible for it. Now, there are means to safeguard things in this nature. Firewalls are one way to go. The other way to go is to have insurance policy against things like this. And now, insurance policies can be either obtained by the platforms themselves, or insurance policies can be purchased by the actual investor towards what they do. So, I mean, those are the ways to protect your assets and your investments in this space. But can a platform avoid all in all hacking? I mean, I don't know. I'm not a security expert. I wouldn't be able to say that, but that's the goal, right? These things have to be bulletproof, fireproof, so that nobody can hack in there.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's a good point. This is a viewer's question. Is it significant difference in hacking security between Microsoft Computer and Apple? And again, I'm not a hacking expert. What I was really talking about is Olav is more about hacking in the protocols. The not necessarily between the computers and hacking into your computer. I know there is a lot of talked about that, really, because when we're talking about wallets, we're saying, don't put your, a cold wallet that's on your computer could get hacked or that kind of stuff. I personally am not as concerned about that. I think that it's pretty rare that someone's going to find your computer and hack into your computer. I know it happens, but, and there are ways to take extreme precaution. But I'm really talking about these protocols, the host systems, in the blockchain, being hacked. And, I just think that we're going to need to continue to address that if we're going to have mass adoption, And I've looked into insurance for some of these protocols because I do a lot of DeFi transactions. And so my assets are in the protocol, in the smart contract. And if those smart contracts can get hacked, my assets are gone. You can buy insurance on some of this stuff, but it's pretty darn expensive still. And so it kind of hacks into your profits. So I'm not sure, what the answer is right now. But yeah, so yeah, I think that's a good perspective on that. And we'll just have to see. I think the social engineering part of it too. That's what definitely happens in all areas of banking and assets and stuff. And I think it's just a matter of us continuing to remind, everybody, just be safe, and just be alert, the simple email phishing hacks. But now you've got Discord and Telegram and all these different things, different ways that they suck you in, right?
Well, Scott, I would say don't be greedy, because when something is too good to be true and people get
Yeah.
excited, oh my God, I'm going to make this gazillion dollar from this one trade with this people. I mean, come on. I think it's all about greedy. Don't be greedy. And
Good point.
do a lot of due diligence. Don't make immediate decisions about jumping into, I was going to say jump into bed with someone you don't know, but it's something like
Yeah.
that, right? So be careful. And there are ways to do it, and hopefully we'll talk about how can you be careful about these things.
Yeah.
If I can add to that, speaking about, like you said, Tigran, jumping into bed with people that you don't know, I just recently actually heard through the grapevine of an individual who was on a dating site, and they met somebody on a dating site. And this person was, they were talking constantly. They developed a relationship over the day, over Messenger, whatever they do. And then this person was this crypto investor, and then started investing for this girl, basically asking, or she, would give him her money, and then he would invest it. And it just kind of carried on and on. I don't know if you've dealt with anything like that. It's just kind of come out now that this was all, everybody around her was saying, hey, like, no, there's something fishy about this. That's a scam, which us being, once you kind of get into the game of crypto and you really start to understand what's what, you would know to look out for anything like that. But for anybody who's never invested before, who knows nothing about investing, it would be pretty easy to just feel like, oh, this person knows what they're doing, get drawn into a situation like that. We know that these scammers are pretty crafty. Have you seen anything along those lines in your work,
So
Tigran?
yeah, that's a great question. So I've seen a lot of that. Here's what happens, right? If you were to, let's say, buy some kind of a cryptocurrency on some platform, y- you will end up seeing a lot of new friends on your social media, Facebook, Instagram, all the other places. And if you're a guy, you're going to see a lot of good-looking girls. If you're a girl, you're going to see a lot of good-looking um, guys there who are trying to become friends with you. And they have this amazing profile. They're highly educated. They're enjoying life, and they're very good looking, and they're putting inspirational posts all the time. So it really looks like a real deal. Okay, real deal. And then they start chatting with you, and then they're asking for your cell phone number. And if you give the cell phone number, then you end up texting each other through cell phone, right? So they build a relationship, right? And then once they build a relationship for a while, then they're saying, hey, by the way, I just did this, I just bought this coin through this platform, blah 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 blah. I made so much money. And they're not telling you to join, they're just telling you a story of their success. And this is what we call a social media phishing. And if somebody was to ask, well, where is this, how is this, then they give you a name, you go there, and then that's it, they got you. Now, most of these people that do these things, they are, well, I would say all of these people that do these things, none of them are in United States. They're outside of United States people. And sometimes through discussions, you could see the accent in the discussions. Even when there's using words in the text, you see a little bit of a non-US language. That's one. But in their profiles, they're claiming as if they live in the United States in some glamorous city. Now, that's one. Two, if you were to have an actual telephone conversation with them over the phone, that would really, break their cover. But most of them don't want to talk to you over the phone. They just want to do text. They want to get to know you, blah, blah, blah. I've had clients that um, jumped into a scam within a day or two. I've seen clients that actually had about 30 to 45-day discussions. Then they jumped into something like that. And I've actually had some clients that invested and actually got some returns back, and then put a lot more money into that,
Yeah.
and then the whole thing disappeared. So the social media phishing expedition of these scammers is big, very, very big. And you know, um, and you just really need to be careful who you become friends with on social media. It doesn't matter how good their profile looks. Um, it doesn't matter how legit they look. Um, you know, if you bought a crypto, there's gonna be an attempt to fish around you and get you, you know, to go on some of the platforms that they host and to scam you out of your money. So you really have to be careful with who you become friends with and who you give money to. And I think number one cause of losing money is greed. It's that simple.
Yeah.
It's that simple. It's laziness of not wanting to learn and do it yourself, and greed to instead of making 10, 15, 20% to make 2,000, 3,000%. Um, so my advice to your viewers is, look, if you get a friend's request from a very good looking friendly person, and it doesn't make sense to you, just erase that person, because even if you're not going to be scammed in that transaction, some of your friends on social media will be scammed,
Hmm.
because your friends will see that you're a friend with this person, so they'll trust this person because that person is friends with you, so some of your
Yeah.
friends might get scammed. So be
Good
careful
point.
about it.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah, kind of funny. At my age, the biggest tip off for me is these beautiful young, very young women who want to be
That's
my friend. All of a sudden, I'm like,
it.
yeah, I don't think so. So,
That's it. Yeah.
yeah, 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 that's
And it's
really
not just
good.
beautiful, but Scott, it's not just beautiful, very successful. And they're,
Hmm.
partying in San Tropez or in Sardinia in their
Right.
videos, yeah, like in Santa Monica, Los Angeles. It just looks very, very believable.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, I used to think, oh, I'm smarter than that. I won't get sucked in, and I've been sucked in before too, and I haven't lost any money, fortunately. But it happens to everybody, and no one can think that they're not susceptible to it. You just sometimes, and it's funny. I don't know about you guys, but you've kind of followed that little rabbit hole. You've followed something, along maybe, and then all of a sudden it just hits you like, oh my god, this is probably a scam or whatever. And then it's absolutely clear. But before that, it's like you're just going about your day. You're busy. You got phone calls. You got things, and you're not really focused maybe, and you just kind of go along. But that's happened to me a couple times, and I'm just like, oh my god, it happened to me in crypto. And again, it was a Telegram, and it was a protocol that I was very heavily involved with, and knew these people. I didn't know them, but I had been following them quite a long time. And then a telegram came out saying there was this airdrop for the tokens in this project, and I had owned some of this token, and I'm like, oh, cool. And I clicked on it, and it was a total scam, but it had the same name, but must have been something different, because I think these guys also had a telegram, but it looked the same to me, and I thought, oh, this is great. And what saved me was complete accident. They were greedy. They said you have to have like so many tokens to even be able to qualify for the airdrop. And I thought, oh, okay, I need to buy some more. I was stupid enough to actually go try and buy more tokens so I could take advantage of the airdrop. And something happened, something wonderful happened for me, and that was there was too much slippage or something. I couldn't get the transaction to go through. So I thought, oh, darn, I can't take advantage of that. Well, then I started kind of looking around, and I noticed on the main platform, which was Discord for this particular protocol, they weren't talking about it. And I thought, well, surely they'd be talking about this big, huge airdrop that they're going to do for people. And that got me questioning. And so I started to search a little bit more. And then I found, yeah, if you see this, that's a hack or it's a scam. And before it became clear to me, I thought, oh, this makes perfect sense. And so you just never know. They're smart. They're going to link your friends, other protocols that you're in. They're going to make it really seem like this is a legit thing. And so you can never over pay attention to that stuff. Yeah, it's
And
amazing.
as Brian said on one of our lectures, the person that does this, to them, sitting somewhere in China or North Korea or in Africa, to them stealing $100, $1,000 is a big deal. So even if they spend their whole month on working on it, it's a big deal. To us it might not be a big deal, but to them it's a big deal. And then and then while doing this, if they could get a big one, that's even bigger. So very, very necessary to do a lot of due diligence. My advice to all my clients is: look, if you meet someone on any of the social media platforms, or if you meet someone through WhatsApp or Telegram or any other channels, just don't deal with them. Because even if you don't give them you don't give them access to your wallet, or if you don't buy anything from them, they could send you a picture or a document that if you click on, that could hack your computer, that could hack your phone, that could hack the instrument where you open the document. And if that
Yeah.
hacks any of your any of your electronic devices, then they can just get your personal information. They might not get to your wallet, but they could get your social, a passport, stuff like that. So just don't do it. That's the safest way to go. Only deal
Yeah.
with reputable companies, and don't be lazy, don't be greedy. Do your homework, learn, go to Brian, learn, take a
Yeah.
course, learn, and do it the smart way. Don't try to get into shortcuts, because shortcuts end is usually not a good one.
Yeah. Great advice. Great advice. So, Brianna, anything else here, or should we dive in? You've got an article to share that we can talk about.
I do. Well, I have an article, and I'm kind of going also back into a little bit of history on not far back on history, but
Oops,
what
there's a
I've been
ghost.
really focused. Actually, that's fitting for what we're about to talk about.
Yeah, it might be.
And I don't know if I'll share my screen or if I'll just kind of talk about my notes
All right,
I've
just talk
collected.
about it.
There's been many articles on new regulations, and one of the things that I've been really, really honing in on over the last 2 weeks have been regulations and who's coming up with the regulations. For anybody who's been paying attention, we do have proof of work, aka Bitcoin, kind of under attack from these major banks and organizations due to its environmental impacts, is what they claim, but it's also, as we know, it's outside of their control and they don't like that. And so one saving grace I always kind of had in my mind for Bitcoin was that it would be somewhat of a competition between countries. So that would make some countries want to be a part of it and not rule it out, with the fear that another country may benefit so greatly off of it. But now we're starting to see regulations being proposed from outside of our country's jurisdiction. So they're actually global frameworks for all countries. And so I kind of want to get into that a little bit. So to lead us into it, a little bit of history. The people who are coming up with these regulations are the Financial Stability Board, or the FSB, and they proposed framework for international regulations of crypto asset activities on October 11th. And a little bit on that history, I dove pretty deep, and I watched a conversation between, it was actually on The Defender, and this individual was John Titus. He's actually made a documentary on this information that he has discovered and researched on historical ties within big banks and their immunity and the Department of Justice. And so this information that he was bringing forward had a lot to do with the FSB, along with the BIS, the Bank of International Settlements, who's going to play a huge role when it comes to regulations. Pretty much they're coordinating all of the regulations between all of the countries. So the Bank of International Settlements is the central banks, or a central bank of all banks, and they are coordinators. So they meet with each country has its own Fed, and the BIS goes around and meets behind closed doors. They're doing this a lot right now with each country's Fed and kind of talking about how everything's going to be laid out when it comes to CBDCs. Okay, so I'll go into the history a little bit. So on the Financial Stability Board, the FSB, following the financial crisis of 2008, So this happened in 2012. Sorry, I got off my notes. Let me see where I'm at. Okay, so basically what's happened is there is a secret agreement between the US government and a cartel of foreign banks. And this agreement provides immunity to these banks no matter what criminal behavior may be taking place. So the HSBC Bank in the summer of 2012 had confessed in the past to billions of dollars of theft. The Department of Justice at this time had the HSBC accountable for violating the Bank Secrecy Act and Trading with the Enemy Act because they were facilitating money laundering by drug dealers and terrorists. And the HSBC openly admitted this. And there were prosecutors, people in the Senate, like Elizabeth Warren in the Department of Justice, who were trying to put these people from the HSBC in jail. And it was pretty much a closed case. They had all the evidence, they had confessions, they had everything right there. They're ready to put them in jail. But for some reason, there was no prosecution taking place, only fines. So the HSBC were only getting these massive fines. And so behind the scenes, what happened there were discussions that took place between George Osborne, who is he's a Treasury Secretary in the UK, and he wrote a letter to the people in the Department of Justice, basically stating that these specific organizations are not to be prosecuted. And he explained the reasoning behind this as to why the U.S. government should not prosecute the HSBC. And so then you had many people wondering why George Osborne, who was a UK secretary, was involved in a criminal case in the United States. And I will get back to that here in just a minute. But from this moment forward, the DOJ, the Department of Justice, backtracked and did not prosecute once they received this letter stating that they were not to prosecute and the reasons why. And so, like I said, they just fined the HSBC, but it was very significant because this was a point where there was a realization with the Department of Justice that there is something greater going on here and that it was going to continue to be going on, and they could not do anything to get these guys and to stop it. And so there was investigations into this. There were findings of kind of a secret language in between these emails going on, and the communication with the individuals and within the organizations, including statements of global oversight that lay outside of countries' individual jurisdictions. So also during this time, the Bank of International Settlements tasked the FSB to monitor financial stability and systemic risk, with creating a list of 25 systemically important financial institutions. And nobody at that time really understood what was happening, but this list was basically considered, it's kind of considered an honor roll list. So if you are on that list, you're considered kind of a made man, you're outside of the law, and you can't be prosecuted criminally. So these organizations that were created under the umbrella of the FSB and under the BIS created organizations in different jurisdictions that are in meetings with the Department of Justice, and they report back to Basel, Switzerland with all of their findings that are within these meetings. And the feds meet in Basel, Switzerland 3 to 4 times a year. So going back to the FSB and its proposed framework for consultation for international regulation of crypto asset activities, the author states in this document that they work closely with international regulators. They also state that nothing in this document is legally binding. And so like I said, the FSB released these regulatory frameworks, and they ask for the recommendations for regulations by December 15th of this year, so of 2022. And they are looking for responses and answers from institutions, not from crypto investors, not from people like you and me. It's from big institutions. And the type of questions that they are looking for are questions about crypto, questions about the crypto market, and questions about stable coins. As we know, stable coins have been pretty much the main target over this last year or last year and a half. So within this document, it states that crypto must have global regulations to avoid regulatory arbitrage between jurisdictions. One phrase that we will see regularly, and it's a phrase directly from the WEF or the World Economic Forum, that is used within the document, is that crypto must use and here's the phrase, same risk, same regulation principle. Stablecoins are a direct target here because they are a direct threat to central bank digital currencies. Another area pointed out as an area of concern from the FSB is any cryptocurrency as of being a store of value. We know what that is referring to. That's referring to Bitcoin. Next, they point out the requirement of KYC or know your customer for all transactions, and basically saying no KYC, no crypto wallet at all. So that would take away our cold wallets. And so it is clear that anything that is a direct threat to their control are the main area of concern, which leads us to DeFi, which is considered outside of the regulatory perimeter. So they did touch on that a little bit with DeFi, but it doesn't seem like that's their first go-to. They're going to hit stablecoins first, and KYC, and then move on to DeFi. So USDC Circle is in the process of creating a stablecoin right now for every major fiat currency. Most stablecoins are target as they're pegged to the US dollar and backed by US debt, which is a threat to other countries. So right now, Circle is becoming one of the most powerful companies in crypto because they're making that stablecoin that is backed by individual organizations that want to take control, obviously, of the crypto industry and force it into the same regulations in the existing financial system, as to why the WEF and the organizations that run with it continue to repeat that same risk, same regulation phrase. So stable coins will have high-level recommendations under the FSB recommendations, and it says decentralized stable coins should be banned altogether under the new regulations. And there are multiple documents that were released by the FSB. So there's about 3 different documents. I'll try to locate those and put those in the description so that you can read through them on your own. But one document on stablecoin regulations contains 9 recommendations. But one of the most important ones here that stood out to me that was very significant when it came to the recommendations for stablecoins was that regulators must have the power to freeze any stable coin in circulation at any time. And it's expected that finalized recommendations will come sometime in 2023. And then additional recommendations on DeFi will then be addressed next year and will only be made if regulators decide that DeFi is a threat to the current financial system, which it likely will be considered that. So yeah, that's kind of what I got for today, guys. Any thoughts there to add?
Whoa. Wow. Thank you, investigative reporter Brianna Turk. More info at 11. Wow, that's deep. And there was a lot there. I don't even know where to start. There was just so much there. Could you, like in your mind, summarize what you think the big issue to take away there? Because there was just a lot there.
Okay, so I think what we're seeing, there is a lot there. I think for me, it finally put the understanding of where is this coming from? Like where is the source of where the regulations will be coming from? And that lies obviously outside of our country's jurisdiction. So it's a global, these organizations are coordinators outside of each country's jurisdictions. And then we know that they run together. So we know that there are specific guidelines. They don't want to have anything that is increasing the carbon footprint, which would be Bitcoin. But that's what they're pointing out on their websites. That's what they state in their meetings in Basel, Switzerland every year when they meet and discuss this, that we need to move into where we have the littlest carbon footprint as possible. But this is all kind of being developed at the same time, when Bitcoin's been around for some time now, and we all know that lies without what Bitcoin does, that removes that central bank intermediary and really makes it obsolete where they don't want to be made obsolete. And Bitcoin is really the one that does allow for this. It's that one that keeps beating strong, as we always talk about, where we have Ethereum now, who's moved to proof of stake, who is now being highlighted on these organizations' websites. So it looks like they may be taking Ethereum kind of under their belt a little bit. So how they may be using that, I have questions as to whether or not once they roll out CBDCs, will that just be used on these blockchains, and then that's how we will get our money, or will we still be able to invest, I guess, are kind of my questions when it comes to that. And then stable coins, likely, it just seems like we're going to be kind of under, my guess will be mostly under Circle. USDC will be the one that will meet the criteria. And then DeFi, this is just if they're successful, I guess, will be made illegal, I guess, or banned. And that's the one way that it's able to do this. By every country would need to be on board for that. And so that is one key thing that's pointed out here, is that every country would need to be behind Bitcoin being banned for it to actually be banned. And that's why there wasn't success in the past with China banning it. That's one big reason why. So I just think that we're kind of in a ride. There's going to be a little bit of a ride when it comes to these regulations. And it might not be quite what we're hoping for, but that's if they're successful, and that has to still pass, through and dependent on our leaders. It's up in the air, I guess, of what's going to happen with it. But that is the framework, global framework, that is being proposed.
What do you got, Tigran? I got nothing.
Well, look, this reminds me of the good old HSBC's litigation for allowing various cartels to launder their money through them. This has been going on. It's not a recent thing. HSBC, a number of other European banks have been implicated in allowing various cartels, I'm not going to name particular names, to launder money through their channels. And they've been given a pass in the past, and they're going to be given a pass now, because some of these cartels, profits don't just go to the cartels' pockets, but they go into the government's pockets, because various governments actually support these cartels, and various governments profit from these cartels. So, every generation sees certain type of wave of events in this nature, right? And today's generation in crypto doesn't really remember or know the generation that went through Pablo Escobar's times, and back then, same thing happened, right? And there were a lot of loud news programs, articles. A lot of people were pissed off, and something definitely changed. And the banking system of then is completely different from our banking system today. But guess what? There's this new way of doing things through crypto, right? So, look, this is an ongoing, evolving thing. It's going to be there. Once crypto gets regulated, there's going to be something else then. And then once that something else gets regulated, then there's going to be something else. So, there's no perfect world. There's no perfect situation. Everything is evolving and changing, and we're always going to go through these things. What we could do is we could educate ourselves, We could protect ourselves by having the proper lawyers, by having the proper accountants, so that we don't get implicated or accused of doing those things that other people have done in the past.
Yeah.
Those are my thoughts. And let me just add something so that your viewers don't understand. We're talking about regulation, right? There are two types of regulations. There are regulations in the civil arena where somebody doesn't do something that is civilly wrong, and there's criminal regulation where if somebody does something that is against the criminal law, then they're going to go to jail. Civil arena, think about this. Imagine this. Civil arena means money, right? And criminal arena means jail. So if you break a civil law, you end up paying money for your wrong. If you break a criminal law, then you go to jail. So regulations have to be on both ends, right? Because if I do something that is civilly wrong, then let's say person A did something wrong towards person B, and that wrong is a civil wrong, then the wrongdoer owes money to the other person. But if in criminal law somebody breaks a criminal law, then that person that broke criminal law goes to jail. Now you mentioned something, Brianna. Whether or not all countries have to agree to whether all countries have to agree to be part of this law, for the law to come into effectuation. Here's what I have to say about that. Look, laws are written by United States for the most part, and if somebody doesn't agree with it, then United States will kick them out of that infrastructure through from that chain. So not everyone doesn't have to agree with this law, this regulation, for this law regulation to come into effectuation. They just won't be part of it.
Yeah. That's so true. Wow, there's just so much, to this, and yeah, we talk a lot about on the show about regulation. Not as juicy in detail as this one, which is good. I think that we all have to, like you said, be educated, and that's I think right now that's we all feel a little bit helpless sometimes because it's just wild west still, and we know stuff's coming, and we're kind of nervous, but we're not sure. But what we can do is educate ourselves enough, and really good lot of detail there, Brianna. Man, I think some of this could even use some more unpacking and maybe a few charts, maybe some graphics. I don't know. I'm a visual learner. Yeah. Wow. Good stuff. Cool. Well, let's see. On that same topic, I'm going to bring up an article here about a hack that I talked about last week, and it was about this Mango DAO that got hacked last week, or excuse me, not last week, but I brought it up last week. And it's interesting because this hacker got away with, or he hacked this protocol, and I think for 113 million here. Yeah, it was originally stolen, and I don't even. It's hard to even explain, what he did. I talked a little bit about it last week, but basically it was nothing really illegal. What he did was just take advantage of arbitrage and being able to have multiple accounts and fund one account and then sell assets and put it in another account. And he really didn't do anything wrong. He just very ingeniously was able to buy and sell assets and shuffle them around to where he was able to make a $113 million profit on selling the assets that were available, within this protocol. But obviously, and I don't even know if you call this guy a hacker, but they are calling him a hacker. But here's this article is really interesting. I don't understand this at all, and I'm interesting to get your guys' thoughts on this. But it says Mango Markets has approved a proposal that will allow the attacker to keep a portion of the funds stolen. The attacker will keep 47 million of the 113 million originally stolen. The Mango Markets will also meet the hacker's demands to pay off a bad debt resulting from a separate incident. What? This just blows me away. The proposal has gained 272 million votes in favor of the 4.6 million votes against, representing a 98.5 approval rate. So the DAO, the owners, of this protocol, which again is a becoming, or is a central viewpoint of crypto and decentralization, that now we as investors have a say in how the protocol can operate. It's an amazing concept. But it's so interesting here. So they voted. People said, "Look, we're willing to give him this if he can return, these other assets." I don't know. I really don't understand enough detail to understand why it was so massively approved. But obviously, it was in the best interest of most people to do this. But this hacker slash ingenious, investor was able to shuffle things around, and now he's 47 million ahead, plus some other debt that he incurred. So, what else do I have here? Mango Markets also said that it will not pursue criminal charges against the attacker or freeze any funds. So I don't know what to make of this, guys. And I know that there's a lot more detail in here to understand about this, but just off the top of my head, I'm just sort of surprised that this happened. Surprised that they let him off the hook. Don't even understand really what their motivation would be, other than the guy really didn't do anything wrong. He didn't really commit any crimes. He just took advantage of the opportunity that no one else did, and he took it in. Again, if you did this with $10,000-$20, it might not even be noticed. But he did this with millions and millions of dollars, and so here we are. So
here's what
do you think?
I think. I think this is classic settlement agreement. Let's say I'm suing you for $10 million. We're in litigation. It's either we're going to go to trial and you're going to check your luck and I'm going to check my luck to see who wins, or we come to an agreement where I know what I'm getting and you know what you're paying, and that's it. That's one view. That's one view. That's one view. So it looks like it's a settlement. That's one view. The second view is this. The second view is that this person used some of the funds from this protocol and made some money, and it's not clear how much fund is used, and they're letting him to keep the profits and some of the profits, and they're asking him to give their money back and some of the profits to them so that he doesn't keep the entire thing. This way, it's kind of a win-win situation for both sides, and I think they get to learn how he did it, so they could do the same thing again with their own money and make money. That's what I'm also thinking that happened. The article was kind of vague, didn't give a lot of specifics, so I think those are the two potential scenarios that that the things could have gone. So that's what I read out of it. Thanks for sharing it. It was very interesting, and there are a lot of situations like this on a daily basis where you just make an evaluation to see what's the best and the most concrete resolution that you could get with what's going on here.
Well, do you think, what's interesting is you were saying that, and it's really good to have, a lawyer's perspective on this and say, yeah, this is sort of classic, settlement. But this is kind of the new way to do settlements, like with the DAO voting, right? It's kind of a new way, or is it?
So that's very interesting because, before I really dived into this article, I thought, what? Yeah, the Mango protocol can come to an agreement, but, all the members or all the coin holders could end up suing this individual in a class action lawsuit. And then I started thinking, well, they can't because they're the ones who agreed, not really Mango's managers or owners. So yeah, that's very interesting because this way it's not one person making that decision, and everybody does. So majority wins. Now the question is, what is majority? Is it 51%, or is this 75 or 98%? So it really depends on what majority is.
And that's what's interesting. It looks like there was some 98% had voted on this one, but are different DAOs, do they have different majorities and different rules, and it just really is all brand new, and it is interesting how this kind of it's just interesting. It's sort of like this new way of settlement, but it is classic settlement, obviously what came of it. but are different, DAOs. The whole DAO thing is just fascinating to me. Again, I've never really participated in one, but I do think that DAOs in general, other than just this protocol, using it to vote, using DAOs to vote for, elections, and it's just, I think the whole DAO concept is we're just beginning to see what is possible without it or with that. And again, I don't know. Absolutely, you wouldn't think you would need a blockchain to have a DAO, but it all kind of sits on top of blockchain, and it's why, again, people that don't understand crypto, when I say I think blockchain is changing the world and will certainly change the world, this is just sort of one area. And on top of that, it is also interesting, where blockchains don't fit, because a lot of really, crypto advocates are like, oh, blockchains are going to solve the world. Everything should be on a blockchain. And I don't know enough about it, but I'm not sure everything needs to be on a blockchain. But there are some really fundamental ways that things are going to change because of blockchain.
I got a question for you guys. Do you think blockchains are the perfection of a democracy?
Oh, wow.
Or better yet, is it like communism, where things are pretty equal? You have an equal voice with everybody else, or is
Yeah,
it a
I mean, I think it's I don't know. It's certainly debatable, but one of the things I find interesting about blockchain is this whole thing about transparency. And as you guys, I don't know if you were there, Brianna, but I think Tigran, you were there yesterday on the London Real on our DeFi call. There was this question about transparency and privacy, and that on the blockchain, there's this theory of transparency that you can't actually see who the person is, but you can see all the insides and the transactions, and then you can infer from looking at all the data on the blockchain who's doing what. And apparently, I can't remember quite the exact example, but they were able to trace these transactions back to individual people, and they doxed it. They put that information out there that could then have some detriment to those people, because some of these people just had done transactions. They got caught up, and I don't think it was Tornado Cash, but it was something to do with doxing people's transactions. So you've got this privacy thing, and then you've got these DAOs about voting, and everybody's vote is equal, and now it can't be tampered with because it's on the blockchain. Super good questions. Speaking of questions, let me put this one on. This is a friend of ours, Petya, who is in our class also. She has this comment. I'll just read it for everybody. It says Petya says IMF and WEF are pushing international regulations above country regulations, making even more important electing people that will understand technologies and science, stand up for freedom and the Constitution. Yeah, well said. Good job, Petya. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point, Mattia. And we do have, that's the other thing with these organizations, that all kind of run together. There are a lot of eyes on them right now for various reasons, many of the major events happening in the world. And they are being pointed out, and they have been, like Tigran said, this stuff hasn't just started now. It's been going on for a very long time, if not forever. But there's a lot of eyes on it now. And we do have, I don't personally get too political, but I'm starting to, because there are politicians, specific ones. Rand Paul is one example, who is really pointing these people out, and he's wanting to he wants justice to be served, and he really seems to be wanting to point out, this is where all of this money has been going. Why are we spending millions of dollars on lizards on a treadmill? Things like that. Why is this where our money is going? And really bringing that transparency to where taxpayer dollars are going. And not only that, just what's happening within these organizations that are kind of outside of the law. And so we do have hope with people pointing these things out publicly. But then again, there's that corruption. And I think that's what one of my things that kind of goes in my head is, if once we have these CBDCs in play, which is a huge push to try to get them out as soon as possible, how that could affect potential elections. Because there have been instances, and I wish I could remember which country it was in, I'll have to follow up on that, where they did, in fact, impact them. And so I'll dive into that, but that may not lead to a fair election. And
About El
we still
Salvador.
where was it?
El Salvador.
Oh,
El
so it
Salvador.
wasn't El Salvador?
I think it is El Salvador.
Oh, where they have Bitcoin as legal tender.
Exactly.
So it's all interesting, but I think, kind of going back to your question too, Tigran, whether or not the blockchain solves everything, it seems like it was made to. I kind of look at it as I'm kind of becoming somewhat of a Bitcoin maxi in some ways. I don't rule out of other things, but I do appreciate Bitcoin because it's already there. It's going just fine. It was made for specific reasons, for that transparency and to remove the intermediaries and remove that corruption that's been in place for so long. And it's been developed to create that, but now what we're kind of seeing is this corruption trying to get its hands on it and use it for its benefit. And so that it just corrupts that transparency and the quality over it, because now we may have everything on our end, which is transparent, but that transparency is not going to lie on the other side as long as they're involved, because that's just the history of their game. So I think blockchain was made for for fairness and for it to be like that for everybody and equality, but we're kind of watching it being taken and corrupted, or attempts for that to happen.
Attempts, yeah. I think, that I'm sort of, a realist in this. I mean, I love Satoshi Nakamoto's, dream visual, utopian sort of transparency, decentralized world. I think to get there, we're going to go through a lot of hurdles. And, as a realist, it's going to look different completely. And there will be regulation, and there will be people who try to take advantage of it. And again, I think it's education, staying on top of it, having discussions, trying to, talk to your politicians, and get their views. But, there's going to be regulation, and there's going to, this utopia, wonderful blockchain world where there's complete transparency, decentralization. I don't know if we'll ever get there, or if, in our lifetime, we'll get there. But it doesn't mean that we can't still be proponents of it, still push for it, still take advantage monetarily, from it. Like I said, I love Bitcoin, but boy, I'm involved in DeFi right now, and what it can do. So anyways, guys, it's already after an hour. Time flies when you're having fun, and we could talk about this all day, obviously, and we do. That's why we call it Talking Crypto with Brianna and Scott. So Tigran, thanks a lot. Really good input and aspect. We'd love to have you on here again, because it does really help. Because some of this stuff is really complex, and it really helps to have somebody that can help understand the sort of legal sides of this. So again, thank you.
Thank you for having me, and have your viewers to send you questions. And I don't have my own channel yet. I'm going to have it soon. The name is going to be CryptoMonk.
Nice.
CryptoMonk. But until I have my own channel, I'll be happy to answer
Great.
any question that your viewers might have. Accumulate them, and invite me anytime. I'll be happy to come and
Awesome.
support what you do here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tigran. It's been really nice to hear your perspective, and I feel like we hardly scratched the surface. So yeah, we'd love to bring you back in the future.
Absolutely.
All right, Brianna. Well, another great show, and I'm glad you're feeling better. And we'll pick it up again next week, and we'll rock it out again with the crypto. All right, guys. Everybody, we'll see you around.
See you next week. Thank you.
See you next week.